Hi, everyone, and welcome to Importer Insight, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the global import community. I'm your host, Amanda Horney, and today I have with me a powerhouse in the fresh produce industry, known for transforming citrus programs into multi-million-dollar success stories. He brings over 20 years experience in leading sales and marketing at top-tier companies like ZanoFresh, Sunkist Growers, Sun Pacific, and Lone Star Citrus. He is also an expert at driving innovation, building strategic partnerships, and unlocking growth domestically and in global markets. Welcome, Trent Bishop. How are you?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. I'm
Good.
glad to be here.
Well, you've got a lot you've been in this industry for, it said 20 years. How did you get started in the fresh produce industry and in imports in general?
So actually, October 6th of this year will be 31 years that I've been
Wow.
doing this, believe it or not. And how I got started was, I guess if you want to go back to the very beginning, between my freshman and sophomore year at Texas A&M, I sent 44 resumes back to the Rio Grande Valley, hoping to get an internship. And Lawrence and his dad, Lenny Croman at Icunic Company, were the only
Wow.
people that gave me an interview, and then hired me for a summer internship. So I actually interned at Icunic for the first time. I spent 3 months in the summer. I believe it was the summer of '91. Um, Getting to know a little bit about the industry, and that's when the whole thing started.
That's an amazing story. Wow, Icunic, a blast from the past. I haven't heard that name in quite a while. They were a major player in the lime industry before Wonderful Citrus bought them, I guess maybe 10 years ago or so, more
Yep, that
about that.
sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds
And
about
ironically, fast forward 31 years, and here I am back in the lime industry. So
right.
it's
Yeah.
it's come full circle.
Yes. So tell me about your partnership with ZanoFresh and how that came about.
Sure. So, I was working at Sunkist at the time when Zano Fresh approached me. And truthfully, my wife and I were looking for an opportunity to get back to Texas. Not that
Hmm.
we had anything against Sunkist or California, but our children are here. My parents are here. And so we wanted to eventually get back to Texas. And Zano is an interesting story. So they've actually been in the juice business for over 60 years. So the sister company is called Citro Fruit. And Zano actually was born of the thought process that they're going to transition some of the crop from juice into the fresh industry. And that also coincided with a large acquisition that they made in the heart of Mexico's lime country in Martinez de la Torre, Veracruz.
Okay.
And so they needed somebody to come in and escort them into the commercial business here in the US. The challenge sounded right up my alley with the vertical integration that they have, as well as being able to start fresh and kind of introduce them to the citrus buying segment of the United States. And so I jumped on the opportunity. 18 months later, we are, building a pretty strong business. We've got a nice following. It's been a nice journey. It hasn't been without its challenges, but it certainly has been pretty fulfilling.
Can you tell me more about the challenges that you faced now with your current company and throughout the industry, or throughout your time in the industry, and
Sure.
what
So,
have
I
you
mean, I
learned
think
from it?
the immediate challenges that I faced in coming into this opportunity was the perception of doing business in Mexico. I think
Hmm.
that the United States buyer sometimes perceives Mexico to either be a dangerous place to operate or an inconsistent supply base.
Yes.
The inability to service, promotions or ads or contracts. And so I wanted to make sure that all of our customer base understood that you can do very viable, long term, consistent, reliable business in Mexico. And so that's been my platform. And I think over the past year and a half, we've been able to show that you can do business in Mexico in a safe and honorable and reliable way that adds value to the supply chain. And so that's kind of the challenge. I called it the Mexico problem. I termed it the Mexico problem because it seems like that is a general perception, but I think we're changing that also.
Yeah, I think it really is changing now. You see a lot of people like yourself partnering with a packer or grower out of Mexico and being the representative in the United States and helping to kind of progress the industry in that way, getting buyers to really recognize that they can feel safe and secure with their partners in Mexico. So that's great. Yeah, it really has changed over the last 10 years, hasn't it? Like the whole perception about Mexico has really changed and the way that
It
they do
it
business
really,
as well.
it has, and I think that Mexico deserves that. Mexico is a resource rich country with,
Yes.
full of amazing people, amazing growers. And so I really took it personal. Growing up in McAllen on the border, the Mexican culture is part of who I was growing up and who I am to this day. And so it's been very rewarding to tell the story and change the perception. And so I hope that we can continue to do that in time.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is changing and will change and you're really definitely taking the charge on that. So what have been your best experiences so far? You talked about your challenges. What have been your best learning experiences throughout your career and that you'd like other new importers or new people to the game to understand?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that uh, the first thing that comes to mind with the best experiences is that I love the fact that for the last 30 years, I've been able to proudly talk to our children about what I do for a living. It's of this earth, it's healthy, it's sustainable, we're feeding people. And so I love being proud of the industry that I operate in. And I think it shows. I mean, the industry is full of just humble, hardworking folks. And I have made some of the most amazing friendships with customers that I called. Maybe I cold called them 20 years ago, and now I can give you examples of customers that I've been on vacations with and weddings and funerals. And it's just, it just seems like we have a bunch of really good-hearted people, whether it's on the buying side or on the selling side. If you're in this industry, chances are you're somehow related to the farm or the ground or the earth, and you just
Mhm.
really love being able to add value to people's lives by feeding. And truthfully, that's kind of how I got into this business. I was not raised on a farm. I was not raised in a packing house, but growing up in McAllen, Texas, I saw it everywhere.
Yes.
And I figured, you know what? The world is always going to need people to feed them. And so why not get into that industry? And so that's literally kind of the thought process of how I decided to try, get involved here.
Nice.
And it's
Yeah,
been incredibly fulfilling.
yeah. Yes, it really is. I didn't imagine myself working in the position I do now, adding value to the supply chain as I do. My daughter has said that she'd like to be a farmer when she grows up. So obviously we're doing something right.
I love it.
If
I
that's what
love it.
her
We need we
her
need
goal
we
is.
need your daughter in this
Yeah.
industry for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be seeing a crop out of Missouri sometime soon. I have a few in mind, or I have a few that I've been working on actually. Let's see. So I had a question about comparing your import programs versus your domestic programs that you've worked with in the past. Are there any differences with working with grower partners that are foreign versus domestic?
Well, there are. I would say, what I've realized to be the biggest difference right now is whether I was packing fruit at Lone Star in Mission, Texas, or running one of the packing houses in California for Sunkist. You can get orders at the last minute and still get them packed and out. When our nearest packing house in Victoria, Tamaulipas is 3 hours south of McAllen, and then our other packing house is down in Martinez de la Torre, Veracruz, it's not like you can get a last minute order, especially if it's a special pack and get it there that day. So trying to train our customer base to give us a little bit more heads up on orders has been important, and relaying the need to them on why it has to be that way.
Uh-huh.
Also having trucks getting stuck at the border for one reason or another, or there potentially being some sort of blockade or accident, it definitely affects the urgency that you can get trucks or orders in and out. So I would say that's probably the biggest difference that I've seen from domestic to import. But other than that, I mean, the packing houses run generally the same. You have your same food safety certifications. It's basically whether you just pick up the packing house and move it across the border, and then you just have to deal with the challenges that come with having to get it across.
So do you guys consolidate in the Rio Grande Valley?
Yeah, so we use Medrano Produce right
Okay, you
now
use
as
Madrano.
our
Got it.
distribution center. So we're packing in at one of our two packing houses, and then we'll consolidate there, and all of our trucks will load there at
Nice.
Medrano, which is half a mile from the Far Bridge there in Hidalgo.
Yes, yes. No, I'm familiar with where they are located. Okay, that's good to know. Do you see any difference in the food safety certification process or the standards that are here in the US versus Mexico?
You know, I'll tell you, I am so impressed with the packing houses in Mexico. I think that the general perception is that maybe they don't adhere to the same standards we do here in the US. But I will tell you, my experience has been exactly the opposite of that. In fact, I will say that the packing houses that we either operate or I've visited in Mexico are every bit as compliant with food safety certifications as we are here in the States, and might even go one step further as a means of making sure that we change that perception. So, my message to the consumers out there would be to understand that Mexico is doing a fantastic job of complying with the Food Safety Modernization Act or
Hmm.
any of the third party audits compliances that they need to adhere to. So, and it's kind of my mission to make sure that the buyers in the U.S. understand that. And as far as we go, I could meet or exceed any standard that would be asked of us by food safety or retail here in the U.S. So I think I appreciate you asking that question, because I do think it's important to understand that Mexico's doing a fabulous job of food safety, and we should trust that they're capable of making sure to deliver a healthy and safe food supply.
I would agree with you there. I think they even, like you said, they take it a step further just to make sure that, everything is in order. And yeah, you see it. Well, at the places that I've been to, I've seen that or I've recognized that versus what you see in the US at times. Not everywhere, though. So you've been part of the citrus industry for a long time. Can you tell us what you think the future holds for the next 10 years in the citrus industry?
Wow, another great question. I would tell you that if you look back 10 years ago versus where we're at now, I'd like to think that we're going to continue to evolve with technology. I'm sure artificial intelligence is probably going to play a big role in that. You already see it with some of the Power BI dashboards we're able to put together. What I suspect is that we are going to probably be using drones a lot more. I
Hmm.
would imagine that artificial intelligence will help us with our crop estimates and maybe our peaks and valleys with regards to when we need to be promoting. I would imagine we're going to be able to have a better idea of particularly, and I'm talking citrus right now, but maybe particular size of fruit that's on the tree and how it may evolve over the next 4 to 6 weeks to give us an idea, what the grade or size might be that we need to be promoting 8 weeks out. And I know that some of that technology is already in place, but we as an industry haven't adopted it full scale yet. And so I think that FSMA is going to play a big role in what happens to some of the smaller farmers that are going to be forced to either comply or not. That's going to be an interesting role. And, you know, it just depends on if they're able to be compliant with all the regulations, then supply will continue to evolve as well. Now, if they're not, that's going to be an interesting supply dynamic as to whether or not, because, you just look around at all of the importers coming in, and many of them are small, what we would call mom and pop organizations that don't have access to a packing house. They're just
Right.
growing for their living. If they are unable to comply with some of the new standards that are coming into place, we're going to miss that volume. And so, I hope, and we at Zano are trying to be on the front end of that with some of our smaller outside growers to help them with compliance so that we can keep them in the mix. And truthfully, I mean, it's their livelihood. So, I would say that that's going to really be an interesting dynamic to see how food safety and FSMA changes or evolves with some of the supply base in some of these foreign countries.
Yes.
Well, in the US as well, but what you see in
Right.
the US is kind of some of the bigger packers just become bigger and bigger, and they're able to kind of bring the smaller grower up to compliance. But it's a little bit harder to do that in places like Mexico and Argentina and Chile and
Yes.
Peru and those places.
What do you think is the hardest challenge for those smaller growers with the new Food Safety Modernization Act? Fortunately, they moved, gave us a little bit more room or time to implement everything. I think it's 2028, if I'm correct. But what do you think is going to be their biggest challenge?
Well, I think education is the number one challenge. I think making sure that they understand, and I have to tell you, um, I feel like I'm good at what I do, but I don't know FSMA inside and out. So
Right.
I'm glad that we have people that are much better versed in it than I am. But I think education is the first route, letting
Mm.
them know what is needed to be accomplished, why it has to be accomplished, and then the importance of this isn't just going to go away. This is something that is going to be needed to be adhered to into the future so that they can continue to market their crop, in this case, into the United States. I think that probably 10, 15 years ago, food safety was on everybody's radar, but it was almost kind of an annoyance. And they were like, this is going to go away, or we can figure out a way around it. That's not the way it is anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody has got to comply, or they're not going to have a home for their fruit. And so I think getting that message to them and then maybe teaching them or walking them through the process of compliance is going to be crucial.
You reminded me of, I think when I first started, 15 years ago, getting ready, preparing for the food safety inspection, and you do it all in like, that week or whatever, get the binder ready, get that to present to the inspector, and that was it. But now it's an everyday thing, and you better be compliant because you never know. You never know. Uh,
I am very, very active with the agriculture economics department at Texas A&M, and I
yes.
lecture about once a semester. And I tell the students, look, food safety is probably an incredible avenue for a career
Hmm.
because, again, you look back 10 years ago, and if you were specialized in food safety, you probably had 20 or 30 job offers at any time. Well, now, everybody must have not just a person serving that role, but likely a department serving that role. And so it's a great runway for a career for a young student that's looking for somehow to get into the industry. If they're not involved, if they don't want to be involved in sales and marketing, food safety compliance would be an incredible avenue for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you tell us more about your involvement with Texas A&M? I saw that you participate in the Weston Agri-Food Sales Program. Is that correct? And then you recently won an award for Texas A&M as a Texas A&M alum. Can you tell us? Can you share more about your relationship with them?
Sure. And thank you for bringing that up, Amanda. I appreciate that. First of all, I would say that Texas A&M University is one of my passions, along with my children, saltwater fishing, and this industry.
Yeah.
So anything Texas A&M, I'm very, very active. I'm not militant, but I am passionate. So the Weston, I sit on the advisory board for the Weston Agri-Food Sales Program, and basically it is a program that is in tune just for that. It's for students that want to get into some sort of food sales, and so I'll go and judge their sales competitions, or I go and I'll lecture. And really, my lecturing is more about customer relations and kind of the non-negotiables that we have within our company or any of the teams that I have led over the last several years. I kind of just prepare them for the things that the book can't tell you, what really happens once they walk out the door, how to build their own brand, how to separate themselves and have their own identity, and let them know that they're already being interviewed, whether they know it or not, whether it's posts on social media or how they're separating themselves from all those other students that are going to graduate on the exact same day that they graduate. So it it fulfills me so much every day when I walk away from that campus. I'm so energized by the conversations. These students, they might be exactly the way I was when I was there 30 years ago, but it sure seems like they're more advanced, and it sure seems like they're thinking more into the future than I ever did. And it's just so impressive. And so I take that responsibility so seriously because I'm their biggest fan, and I'd love to, if I could be some sort of influence on them, like my mentors were to me 30 years ago, then, that I owe that to those gentlemen and women who mentored me. So, um, it is something that really, really fulfills me, and I love doing it. And I see no end in sight to the help that I'll give that department.
Nice.
It's repaying them for everything done for my career.
Growing up, it was quite a disappointment anytime I introduced myself in the produce industry that I didn't go to Texas A&M. I have three siblings that did, though, and
Okay.
anyway, yeah, they always speak fondly of their time there. But yes, I think it's a great organization. I think that's fantastic that you're helping these students to understand how to succeed in this industry or others. I'm sure they're learning tons from you. How does the class break up? Is it mostly females, males? What are you seeing as far as the demographics? I'm just
You
curious.
know, I would say, and I don't have the metrics in front of me, but based on just experience, it looks to be about half and half. I can tell you in the last 7 years, there's probably 4 to 5 students that I've mentored that entered the industry. All of them are still in it. I won't mention them by name, but they are very active, and it makes me very proud to see them. Now, I'm not taking credit by any means, but the fact that they jumped into the fresh fruit business or fruit or vegetable business and are doing well, it's really good to see. And I let them know, look, at some point, the Trent and the Amandas of the world are going to step aside, and we need the next generation of movers and shakers and change agents to get out there and help evolve this industry and move it forward.
Yes, we really do. Because you see a lot of the older generation is starting to exit. You see us or our box kind of moving into those leadership roles. And then who's going to be who's next, you know? We need those people to keep it moving forward. So kudos to you for helping to educate our future leaders in the fresh produce industry and
Well,
beyond.
thank you. It's a pleasure, and I get so much out of it.
Tell me about the award that you just won, the Tyrus R. Timm Outstanding Alum Award. Can you tell me a little bit
Well,
about that?
again, thank you for mentioning that. Truly, probably go down as one of the most important recognitions I could have gotten. It's essentially it's an outstanding alumnus award through the Agricultural Economics Department at Texas A&M University. Um, I don't even know how I hit the radar. I was informed about 6 months ago that I had been selected for the award, and just 2 weeks ago is when the ceremony was. And so, in Texas A&M's history of about 18,000 graduates of the Ag Economics Department, there's only been 133 or 135 of us that have been recognized. And so To say that it is an honor would be a huge understatement. And I'm just humbled and appreciative, and I will continue to do whatever I can to whatever it took to earn that accolade. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to just continue to help where I can. And again, I'm so grateful and so humbled that they selected me for that honor.
Well, congratulations. It is well deserved.
Thank you
I
very
know.
much.
So we've been working on a Lime board a little bit. We're getting closer and closer. Do you think our Lime board is going to get passed through? What are your thoughts on it in general?
So first of all, we're absolutely in favor of it. I think that anytime that you can, there's enough POs to go around to feed all of us.
Yes.
And I don't think that in an industry full of competitors, if everybody is pulling a different direction, then from the outside looking in, the industry looks like everybody's pulling a different direction. If you can consolidate some thought leaders and
Hmm.
try to add a little legitimacy to the industry itself with whether it's, grade standards or some sort of regulations that aligns everybody on the same page, that it's good for the industry as a whole. We talked about what I call the Mexico problem. I think that if you're able to get most or at least a majority of the lime shippers, the volume coming in from Mexico aligned with a a like thought process. And I'm not talking, we don't all have to do business the same way, and we don't all have to
Right.
sell the same customers. But I do think it's important that we all abide by a certain set of standards that makes the industry stronger as a whole.
Hmm.
So we're absolutely in favor of it. We've seen the success that the mango board has had. We've seen the success that the avocado board has had. And we've seen some of the other, commodity industries outside even fresh fruit and vegetables. So, I think it provides an opportunity for us to potentially change the perception that we talked about early on this podcast.
Right.
And I think that it's needed. I think that all of us will be better off as a result of the change in perception, uh, that you can operate in the lime business in Mexico in a very forthright, honorable, honest way, and your customers can count on you to deliver what you say you're going to deliver.
Hmm. For me, the biggest positive is driving consumer demand and just helping to educate the consumer, and hopefully put it in their ear that they need limes in their daily diet. And I just see so much volume coming in, and I worry about an excess of volume from our offshore sources, and what's going to happen to the industry if we're not able to maintain the value for our growers, whether they're out of Mexico, Colombia, Peru, or wherever. So that's a huge concern to me. Anybody who's talked to me about it, I always tell them, the people that are part of our industry, I always tell them it's an investment in the lime industry. If you really care about the lime industry and see if you yourself in it in the future, it's an investment in helping to promote limes, worldwide, I think. It's not just going to benefit the US, it'll benefit everybody globally if we come together as an industry and start promoting lime. So hopefully it'll get pushed through soon. I hope we'll see it. I think we'll see it completed within the next 2 years.
I think with the support that it has on the ground level right now, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And when you look and see you know, what, 9 out of 10 limes consumed in the US are grown in Mexico. I mean, so you're talking about a huge industry that is feeding the United States their limes. And so in general, I mean, obviously there's other areas
Hmm.
coming in as well, but majority of the limes are coming right out of Mexico. And so, we want to continue to build that demand and find even new and exciting ways to market the fruit, or new customer base that might not otherwise be on board yet, or to your point, just consumer education. So I think it's a great idea. We're in support, and I thank you for the role you're taking in helping to lead that. So thank you for doing that, Amanda.
Well, it was me and the guys, our whole little crew. We started it together, but and it's moving forward. I'm really happy with the progress so far. I had a question about, do you guys work with seeded limes at all, with key limes?
We do not. Now, I would, and it's funny, I just got back from Veracruz on Friday, and one of the conversations that I had with my team was we have a very large farm in Tamaulipas that has some idle acreage available. And by idle, I'm talking about several thousand acres, and it's all under irrigation. So, we're asked about key limes quite regularly from our customer base. So, I would like to see if we can't experiment on a couple different plots to see if we can grow keys in Tamaulipas. And so, uh, but to answer the question you asked, no, right now we are not doing anything with seeded key limes. Everything is the seedless Persian limes. And of course, we have quite a bit of lemons as well.
Okay, okay. The Eureka, do you offer the Eureka variety, or is that are there different varieties that you offer other than that? I thought
It
that was
is
most
it's
commonly grown.
actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Laminera variety,
Wow.
is I believe what it is. But it comes off mid-July through about Halloween, and so we're late summer, and it's a really good alternative to any of the other offshore fruit coming in.
Right.
And but as you know, the lemon deal has just been very, very difficult over the last several
Yes.
years. The overproduction worldwide has just made the lemon market hard to operate in for sure.
Yes, it really has. I'm concerned about this summer and going into it, whether, what's going to happen. It seemed like California had a ton of fruit. They were selling it really cheap. Um, who knows what that's going to do to the offshore summer deal? And then Mexico's going to start, and, it's kind of all up in the air. We'll see.
Yeah, in 2018 the entire lemon dynamic changed, and you know this is just my personal opinion, not any company that I represent, but I think that there's going to have to be some sort of natural correction in the production of lemons before any of us are able to make money on it. It's just there's just a lot of lemons in existence right now.
I didn't realize it was so bad.
Well, when, to the point you just made, I believe that some of my friends in California were selling lemons for $7 or $8
Yeah,
at one
no, I
point
heard
this
that.
season. And the box itself cost $2 or $3. So I mean, there nobody was making money at all. And I mean, nobody. So
No.
it's a challenge. And when I was at Sunkist, it was probably the biggest challenge I had was, trying to make sure that all of our lemon membership made money, or at least tried to make money, because it's a tough situation right
Yeah. Well, we're hoping the Argentina deal is a good deal this year. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know that a lot of people are gonna. I don't know that a lot of Argentina producers are gonna come to the U.S. That's been the word so far. But we will have fruit if anybody's looking. We've seen a decline in citrus acreage domestically, as far as oranges and grapefruit. Obviously, not lemons. But and an issue with disease. How do you think that's going to impact our industry as a whole?
now. Well, let's use South Texas as an example. Between the two freezes that they've had over the last several years, and then you've got a lot of people who are just understanding they could sell their property and build a house on it and probably make more money. And so when those types of things start happening, and you see it, look at how HLB devastated Florida, and then Texas has a couple freezes, and now you've got the lemon guys in California that are trying to make a living to determine whether they should turn their property into houses as well. you know, there comes a point where, and with lemons being the exception, that we're going to start seeing, look at what oranges are doing right now. I mean, oranges, the market has just been on fire for what seems like 18 months because there's just not enough oranges to feed people. We'd like to think that somewhere along the way, we're going to be able to go back in and add some of this acreage domestically because we need it. And if not, then it's even more important that our international partners are able to pick it up and do it in a way that they can make money. We're still able to buy fruit in our grocery store at a reasonable cost, because if we don't hit those sort of balances, it's going to be tragic to see that
Yes.
the citrus industry slowly is just dwindling away. As a lifelong citrus guy, or at least a career-long citrus guy, that I would hate to see that.
Yes. No, me too. Me as well. We'll see what the future holds. Hopefully, we'll see more. I hope to see more grapefruit in all honesty. More grapefruit, more oranges in the near future. What is your opinion about branded citrus versus private label? And where's the value there?
Sure. So, you know, my opinion, and it's not always a popular opinion, I want to put it in the label that the consumer is going to buy. All
Yeah.
right. I think that more and more you see retailers going toward the private label, which I don't blame them. They don't want to be held hostage to any particular label. And so by doing a private label, they're able to get all of their key vendors competing for their business, which if I were in their shoes, I would be doing the exact same thing. So, you know, the the consumer, I don't believe, is as interested in our labels as we want to think they are.
I
The
would
consumer
agree.
just, they just want a fresh, safe piece of fruit that is going to be consistent every time they buy it. And so, you know, I I'm I don't really mind. I would pack all private label for our customer base if that's what they wanted to do, and have no trouble doing it at all. There are some exceptions. There's a very big label in the strawberry industry. There's a couple of big labels in the mandarin industry that might be the differences, but generally speaking, I think that the consumer just wants consistency, and they're probably not as motivated to see our label as we want them to be.
I would agree with you on that. As a mom, as just a regular consumer, I'm just looking for a good piece of fruit that I know is not going to rot in the next 2 days. And if the bag is pretty, that's a plus. And if it's got something informational that I can show my child, even better. Like that's a great way to sell, in my opinion, just, for people looking for ideas. But I would agree. I don't think people really look at it the way that we do. What has been a citrus mistake or risk that became a learning moment for you?
Ironically, the first one that comes to mind would be an issue that revolved around a private label. This was, I'm going to say 10 or 12 years ago, but I don't remember exactly. We were asked to switch from our bags to a private label. And at the time, private label was still coming into its own.
Uh-huh.
And we chose not to, and it cost me a whole lot of business. And so I'm not saying that that's the moment that my opinion changed on private label, but I clearly remember that I didn't share the same opinion of it that I do right now. And so it led me to understand that the retailers of the world are building their customer base and loyalty just like we're trying to do. And we all know some of the big retailers that have really strong private labels. Their customer base really looks for that, and they
Yep,
appreciate
absolutely.
that, and they're loyal to that. And so it's up to us to help feed that demand. And so I learned real quick that if a customer wants it in a private label, put it in a private label.
You say yes. You
You
say
say
yes.
yes.
Awesome. Well, my last question for you, if you had to give advice to your younger self in this industry, in the import industry, what would it have been? What
Wow.
would it be?
I would say just continue to grind, because what happens in our industry is that, especially for rookies or somebody just getting in, we speak a different language. you know what I've learned is, if you survive in this industry for about a year, 18 months, it's probably going to get a vice on you and not let go. But
Yes.
getting through that, and the analogy that I use for some of the youngsters that I've trained over the years is that when you first get started in this industry, it's going to be like walking through a jungle, and you're going to have a machete in your hand, and you're just going to try to just find a path to something. And then one day you are going to knock a branch out of the way, and there's going to be this amazing pasture that is just absolutely sunlit and beautiful. And you're going to be like, oh, this is where I was headed. And then you get it. Things become a little bit easier. Your confidence grows a little bit, and you understand the rules of the game a little bit better. So if I were to offer myself advice, I would say keep trudging through that jungle, because you will get to the point where it makes sense, when you find success and you find confidence and you find personal fulfillment, and then it becomes really, really fun.
Yeah. That's some great advice. It's really, really great advice. Yeah, just keep moving forward, keep pushing ahead. I find myself telling myself that often. Just keep
And
moving
you know
forward.
what? Even at our stage of our career,
Yeah.
we still have to pick up the machete sometimes and
So
find another path, because the challenges are ongoing. Vacations, you're always basically need to be on your phone somewhere. Now, granted, I'm a huge proponent of work-life balance. You have to have a balance in order to, you won't be happy in either place if you don't have that balance. But in our industry, you know, the fruit doesn't matter if it's Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day or Mother's Day. If you've got a truck loading, you better make sure it's backing into the dock so that you
yeah,
can get it to wherever it's headed.
exactly. You better make sure that order's shipped out, or get on the horn and make those calls. It's never
Yep.
ending, but I love it. I love talking to friends and people like you on a daily basis. I really, really appreciate the time that you spent with me today. I think you gave some great, vital information that people can learn more about the industry, the import side, domestic side, and such. Is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with before you go?
I'm grateful that you invited me to participate today. I thank you for that. And I would just, if there's anything I can ever do to help anybody that's listening, reach out. I'm all about just helping the industry move forward, whatever I can do in that manner.
Awesome. People can definitely find you on LinkedIn. Are there any other social media platforms that you partake in?
Actually, I don't. LinkedIn is the only one. I used to be on all of them, and then I just found myself spending more time on them than I really wanted to. So I'm on LinkedIn. I encourage you to, if I can do anything for you, look me up on LinkedIn and connect with me. And uh, again, anything I can do to help evolve our industry, I feel like if it's good for me, it's good for the whole. And so I'm here to help however I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trent. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll be in touch. Everyone, take care.